Hey there, welcome to yet another video in this series. In this session, we will discuss various use cases around the provisions of anticipation, or to say provisions which describe any activity as not anticipating for an idea or invention. Now, just so that you know what are we talking about, let's start by looking at a use case. A big one, but let's go over it. So Mr. Datta, a research scholar of an Indian university, invented one watch, underline, which acts as an alarm for senior citizens and patients in respective call centers of registered hospitals for emergency support. In the meantime, Mr. Datta has approached central government to approve a financial grant for his invention and had a discussion with the concerned official of the said department. Underline this also. Mr. Datta exhibited, underline, his invention in the industrial fair organized by the government, right? So this is also underlined. On 15th February 2015 was the exhibition. One of his colleagues in the same lab published his invention, underline, in the newspaper on 2nd March, few weeks after the first exhibition, without his consent, again underline. Meanwhile, he has attended one awareness program on patent in Delhi. Immediately on 10th March, he has filed a provisional specification, good job, before the patent office, and subsequently filed complete specification on 10th December. Now 10th March to 10th December, within 12 months, all good on Mr. Datta's part. Mr. Datta is not sure whether the exhibition and publication in the newspaper or communication with the government officials would hamper his patent protection or not. Hence, he seeks your advice. Give the appropriate advice in writing to your client as practicing patent agent, right? Quoting the relevant sections of the Patent Act. Now, whatever portions that we underlined, they have already summarized in the last paragraph of the question, which says that whether the exhibition or the publication or the communication with government. Now, what all has happened? Because of all these activities, the invention has become part of the public domain. And when something becomes a part of the public domain, what happens? Obviousness, novelty, all these comes crashing down. But then there should be provision to stop all these activities to be used against you, right? So section 29 to 33 and 34 actually deals with all the situations line by line, so that this could be used by the inventors in their defense. So exhibition is allowed. Publication without your consent is also allowed, and communication with government is also allowed, provided you file your application within 12 months from any of these activities. So this is how a use case would be weaved in front of you, where a storyline would be there describing all the actions that have happened, which in normal situations or in ideal situations would be considered as novelty killing or obviousness attack. But because we have the defense of section 29 to 33 and 34, you could use them for you. So when we are given a use case or a question, how do we start understanding the question? Or to say, how do we start decoding the question? So we understand the situation first, what is described. In Mr. Datta's case, we went line by line and underlined it, right? So we understand the situation to see, does it involve making the invention public before filing a patent application? Now, how can you make an invention public before filing a patent application? By publication, by public display, which is like exhibition, or by working in front of a crowd in public domain, or by government communication. So by any of these activities, you can make the invention public. What circumstances led to these actions? Was it with or without consent? What are the timelines for such actions that have taken place? And was the working of your invention for reasonable trial or commercial purpose? Finally, with all these said and done, what is the objective of your client? Most of the times, objective is to see whether is it still okay to file an application, or Is my application in good health from any invalidation attacks? So this is how we decoded the entire question to get or to gather all the information we wanted to gather. So next step is to provide your advice or code your answer. How do we do it? As always, you mention your understanding of the situation. How do we do it? One of the ways is this. As per the information disclosed, the invention was made public by this, copy paste whatever there in the question, write it down. Now, what is the objective? The client wishes to file an application. Would the above action harm the chance? So you pick sections to say whether this will harm the chance or not. So you pick sections to see whether such actions would cause harm or not. So how do we write that? As we know, section 29 or one of the sections till 33 provides circumstances that do not constitute an anticipation of the invention as per section 34. Section 34 clearly says that if the actions were one of these which are mentioned in section 29 to 33, then it will not be considered as anticipatory. Therefore, the client still could file an application for a patent as per the section that you have disclosed. Now, because you have mentioned section 29 to 33, one of these sections, you need to justify the actions that your client did with regards to the wording of section 29 to 33 and 34, right? Now, how do you do so? You define the timelines of the events, the exhibitions, the publications, the public trial, and a provisional application that was filed. You justify the actions that because of section 29, because of section 30, because of section 33, such events or such actions are allowed. What actions? Pick the details from the question itself. So we have reached that stage where we can read a question, decode the question, and codify the answer. Let's do that. Here's the first one. All such questions would be big in size because they have to describe the events, right? And from the events, you pick and choose where section 29 to 33 can be applied to save your client's interest, right? Let's read this. Rahman Roshan, a student of one of the IITs, came up with an invention which is cylindrical slide which can be installed in the balcony of high-rise apartments. In case of any emergency or fire or earthquake, the inmates roll the cylindrical slide to the ground floor and can slide to safely. He shared his views with his brother in a private conversation, underline, who is an editor of journal Safe Houses. So he is the editor of someone. He conducted a trial of the invention from the 9th floor of his hostel. It means public trial to assess the effectiveness. It was required because without a public trial, you would not get to know whether your invention works or not, right? He wanted to know the feedback of his invention and exhibited the same in an exhibition. So he went to an industrial exhibition as well. In the meanwhile, he learned that his brother published the details he shared in Safe House. So this was published by his brother, supposedly without his consent also. So after all this, in September 2010, within 12 months, he filed a provisional application in Indian Patent Office and complete specification in January 2011. All good. So as you know, each line talks about an action that has been taken to make the invention public. Now, all of these can be justified through section 29 to 33. So you start by mentioning your understanding, quoting section 29 to 33 for each of these actions that have been taken and how you justify those actions in line of the wordings of section 29 to 33. And then finally, as per section 34, you can convince and satisfy your client saying that what you did was in line with what the section provides. Moving on to the next one. Anjan has been involved in the development of drainage systems. He thought it is necessary to conduct tests in the compound of his large society. He thought it was necessary to conduct the test. Underline, public working of the invention for reasonable trials. On 30th March 2009. On 1st September 2009, very good, within 1 year, he applied for a patent in Mumbai Patent Office. Anjan was very confident that there was no prior art that could come in the way of grant of his patent application. Praful, who lives in the same housing society and had seen the testing of the invention, came to know about the patent application and opposed the patent application on the ground that it had witnessed the use of the invention in public place in India before the patent was filed. Simple case. So the public trial or public use of the invention was required for reasonable trials to understand the effectiveness of the solution. Therefore, such public display or working of the invention will not be considered as a valid ground to invalidate or to reject a patent as per section 34. Right? You can codify your answer by mentioning your understanding, justify the action as per the sections, and finally concluding by saying that proposed ground cannot be considered as valid grounds for rejecting the application. So with this, we have covered the use cases around the anticipation provisions of the Patent Act, section 29 to 34. Please go through the section along with the videos on this channel so that you know the situations, the conditions, and the verdicts to justify the actions of your client, to justify the scenarios which are mentioned in the use case, so as to conclude that such actions could be considered as anticipatory or may not be considered as anticipatory. So this brings us to the end of this session. In the next video, we will discuss few use cases around the infringement and non-infringement provisions of the Indian Patents Act. Till then, be good and take care.